17.
They're backed up here. Had to have a play. Who else?
The pass.
But the sick boy. Go, baby.
Inside the 20 to the 10. What a play.
Wow. What a throw. What a catch.
Watch this. We saw the throw deep earlier.
This throw.
Equally as good
right in
as
his head.
He gets a ball roped right to him. It surprises St. Brown, and he does the rest. What?
Lions head into Week 16 with something to prove. After a tough loss and even more players ending up on injured reserve, Detroit is left wondering if they have enough firepower to get to a Super Bowl. Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. Thank you for returning for another video. The Lions will end their season series with the Chicago Bears here in Week 16. They head to Soldier Field December 22nd. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. on Fox. Let's go through my full game preview. We'll start with the headlines and storylines from this week. We'll take a look at the key matchups and X factors. I'll tell you what the difference in the game will be, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll give you my final score and prediction. Let's go. Let's jump right into it with our Lions headlines. Of course, Detroit coming in at 12-2. They are on top of the NFC North, tied with the Minnesota Vikings, and they currently hold the number 1 seed based on tiebreakers in the NFC. They're coming off that tough loss to the Buffalo Bills in what was deemed a Super Bowl preview, 48-42. Coming off of some interviews this week, Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, appears much more ready to accept a head coaching job this offseason. He had a very good opportunity to take the Washington Commanders head coaching job this offseason, declined to come back to Detroit to hopefully finish the job here. We'll see what ends up with the Lions season. But even so, no matter what happens with the Lions, it appears Ben Johnson is poised to be one of the next head coaches in the NFL in 2025. Both defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn and head coach Dan Campbell in the media this week came out and were very adamant about the Lions being still in a good position. Nobody cares about the injuries stacking up here on the Lions roster, and that is the attitude that the coaching staff and the organization will take moving forward. It's good to see that confidence. Of course, it's going to take a lot of shuffling, especially defensively, with the additions here in the injured reserve list, and we'll go through that in detail. But the Lions are heading into it with the right attitude, and of course, we'll project that to the players and staff to move forward here with this season. Jared Goff has come out and said that the Lions really need to refocus on starting these games faster. They fell into a 14-0 hole against one of the better teams in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, and they really were not able to recover. Well, with all of the mounting injuries defensively, it becomes even more important for this Lions offense to get out to hot starts to not put their defense in tough positions here for the rest of the season. It also came out this week that Amon-Ra St. Brown played through flu-like symptoms in the matchup against the Buffalo Bills. He actually threw up for the first time in his life prior to that game versus Buffalo. He went on to put up career stats, not only for catches, but yardages, and had that touchdown, which we let in on. Aiden Hutchinson went on the Taylor Lautner podcast this last week and made the declaration that if the Detroit Lions are able to make it to a Super Bowl, he vows to be back and ready to play. Of course, that is so far down the road, and many things would have to happen, which also includes maintaining this health and rehab. But Hutch is very confident that if the Lions can get to that point, he will be able to help them in that journey. And let's go through the Lions injury updates, which could be its own video each and every week. But quickly, we'll buzz through this. Coming off of the Buffalo matchup, they added 3 additional players to injured reserve. The unfortunate defensive tackle, Aleem McNeil, will be out for the remainder of the season with the knee injury. Also, cornerback Carlton Davis suffered a broken jaw in the matchup against Buffalo. He will be out for at least the next 6 weeks, hoping to get him back for the playoff run. Also had a very tough injury to cornerback Khalil Dorsey. He had a broken ankle. He was placed on injured reserve, went in for immediate surgery. Word is that came out well, and we hope for his best recovery, but he will miss the remainder of the season. On a positive note, David Montgomery, the running back, who the Lions suspected would be out for the remainder of the season with an MCL injury, got a second and third opinion, and it appears he will decide to go through rehab in an effort to try and get back for the playoffs. We'll have to see what comes out of that rehab, but it is positive news that he will not have to immediately go in for surgery and will hope to get well enough to help the Lions in this run. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the linebacker, also returned to practice this week. Lions opened up his 21-day window coming off of that neck injury. He was limited both Wednesday and Thursday and would be very doubtful for this matchup against Chicago, but they do expect him back in the weeks to come. Lions also added a couple pieces to make up for the few that they lost for injured reserve this past week. They added linebacker Anthony Pittman from the Jaguars practice squad. He was added to their active roster. Then they also added cornerback Stanley Thomas Oliver from the Carolina practice squad. He will be added to the Lions practice squad. A couple other injury updates here as we head into this Chicago matchup. Ife Melifonwu and Trevor Nowaski are both back in practice full Wednesday and Thursday this week, so it will be good to get those depth pieces back for the defense. A few veteran players did not practice both Wednesday and Thursday. Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, DJ Reader, Zadarius Smith, also Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Kevin Zeitler. A few injuries to monitor for this week heading into the Chicago matchup. Brian Branch has a new calf injury. He was limited practice on Thursday, but is expected to play against the Bears. Also, Graham Glasgow, the Lions guard, has a knee injury. He is questionable for this matchup against the Bears. Again, he has not practiced both Wednesday and Thursday this week. We'll have to see what his status is for the remainder of the week as we get closer to this Week 16 matchup. Now let's switch it over to the Bears and headlines from this week. Of course, Chicago coming into this matchup at 4-10. They're last in the NFC North and were officially eliminated from playoff contention with the Week 15 loss. As we know, the former head coach for the Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus, was fired stemming from the matchup with the Lions there on Thanksgiving Day and all of the clock management issues at the end of that game, along with everything else that was going on there in Chicago. A lot of inconsistency. Well, most of the news coming out of Chicago this week is revolving around their head coaching search. Most of what you'll find out there is that the leading candidate seems to be former Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, who would bring in sort of a defensive philosophy, a hard-nosed, hard-edged coach. And certainly the Bears need that sort of structure, but a lot of people would tell you that an offensive mind would suit the Bears' situation a little better currently. We know that the Bears have the budding superstar, rookie sensation quarterback Caleb Williams. So bringing in more of an offensive mind, somebody who can mold a young quarterback, may be better suited for that situation. So you have guys like offensive coordinator Ben Johnson for the Detroit Lions, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Brady, who is the current Bills offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, the current Bucs offensive coordinator, also Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, and Bobby Slowick, who is the Texans offensive coordinator. So you have a lot of offensive minds in the mix there as well. It'll be interesting to see how Chicago moves forward. A lot of the Bears' offensive struggles this season comes down to their offensive line. They've had a lot of trouble protecting Caleb Williams. They've given up a franchise-high 58 sacks on the season, currently tied for the first most in the NFL. Going into this matchup with the Lions, they may be without both starting guards, as guard Ryan Bates didn't practice Thursday, coming off a concussion from the previous week, as well as left guard Tevin Jenkins also did not practice. He had a calf injury. Both are considered doubtful for this Week 16 game against the Lions. Good news on the offensive line. They will be getting back their tackle, Braxton Jones. He was a full practice on Thursday. That was another concussion issue, but he is probable for this matchup. On the defensive side of the football, Gervon Dexter did not practice on Thursday. He has a knee injury and appears he will be doubtful for this game against the Lions. Let's get into the key matchups here for Week 16. Lions heading to Chicago. I think the biggest matchup might be the Lions front seven against the Bears offensive line, specifically the pass protection. We just got off talking about the Bears giving up 58 sacks on the season. They also might be without both of their starting guards. The Lions in the matchup against the Bears on Thanksgiving were able to get to Caleb Williams 5 times. However, in their last matchup against Buffalo, there were no sacks against Josh Allen, and the pressure really wasn't there. So can the Lions contain Caleb Williams? Can they get to him enough to affect this Bears offense? And the second key matchup, I believe, is the Bears wide receiver weapons against the Lions secondary, which is becoming more depleted as we get deeper into this season. The Lions now will feature Terrion Arnold as their lead cornerback after the injury to Carlton Davis, the broken jaw, which will keep him out at least the next 6 weeks. That's really going to test the Lions' depth there at corner. There's also some questions about Brian Branch's health coming into this matchup, so they may be down at safety as well. We know the Bears bring in big weapons here offensively, especially at the wide receiver position. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. We know what DJ Moore can do. He's fantastic. But really, the true Lion killer has been Keenan Allen. Over the last several matchups, he seems to get in the end zone every single time. So the Lions are really going to have to shift some things around and trust their depth pieces to be able to cover these weapons for the Bears. Without Carlton Davis, you're going to have to rely on depth pieces like Emmanuel Mosley, who really hasn't played often coming off of his injuries. They're going to look to now hopefully insert him here in this Bears matchup. We know you have depth pieces like Kindle Vildor, who has struggled in the past. You also have rookie Enos Rakestraw, who may be able to work himself back in depending on his health status. So again, you have a lot of questions. All of that, is it enough to cover the weapons for the Bears? Both of these key matchups seem to go hand in hand. If the Lions' pressure can get home, that may affect the Bears' passing attack and vice versa. The Lions were running around, scrambling, chasing Josh Allen all day long and were not able to get home. In turn, Josh Allen was able to make every single play on the field all day long. If the Lions can get better pressure, that will mean better things for their defense overall. Now let's get into those X factors, or the players that will make the ultimate difference here in Lions versus Bears. And we got to start with the Lions now solo running back Jahmyr Gibbs. And a very unfortunate injury to David Montgomery in the MCL. Again, we'll monitor his status and can he rehab and get back for the playoff run. Well, until that time comes, Jahmyr Gibbs is now the Lions' bell cow, which could mean a couple different things. I've seen a lot of people say this will really hurt the Lions' offense. On the other end of the stick, Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run threat every time he touches the football. The more times they can put the ball in his hands, the more opportunities for big plays there may be. So I think he is going to be a huge X factor because he is going to get many opportunities. He may even double up the amount of touches. You might see him much more involved in the run game, maybe a little less in the screen game, and the passing attack. But I think in turn that will put more yardage on him on the ground. Right now, Jahmyr Gibbs has 186 carries for 1,047 yards and 11 TDs. We know he's a pass game threat. He can work the screen. He can really do it all, and I think he will be a huge X factor in this matchup against Chicago. For the Bears, offensively, you got to start with rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. And we talked about the offensive line struggles, but the truth is he will have opportunities to make plays against this Lions defense. Extending plays, finding open receivers, those opportunities will be there. So I believe he will be a large factor in this game. On the season, he's 288 of 465, 2,937 yards through the air, 17 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Then you got to turn it over to Jared Goff, who was excellent last week, but just overshadowed by what was an MVP performance by Josh Allen. Last week alone, Jared Goff, 38 of 59 for 494 and 5 TDs, even in a game where their run game disappeared and they had fallen behind 14, 17 points on multiple occasions. Jared Goff was excellent, making throws. He was efficient. He got them back in this game and gave them a chance to win it. So I think he will be another X factor here against the Bears. In sticking with the Lions offense, one of the beneficiaries, I believe, from the David Montgomery injury, and of course it'll be Jahmyr Gibbs and the more carries, but I think the Lions will have to reshift how they distribute their run game, and part of it is maybe handing the ball more to their wide receiver group, which includes Jameson Williams. We know he's been involved in the screen game, runarounds, end-arounds. I think you'll see a lot more of that because of the absence of David Montgomery and the more load they're going to put on Jahmyr Gibbs. So they're going to have to lean on some of their other offensive weapons. So I believe in this matchup against the Bears, you might see Jameson Williams explode and have some opportunities to make some big plays. Anytime the Lions face off against this next player, he is going to be an X factor. The true Lion killer, wide receiver Keenan Allen. And he's become even more prominent in their offense lately, which is kind of weird considering they're out of the playoffs, their season is kind of drowning, and yet they're still feeding the ball to their veteran wide receiver and not their younger guy. But that doesn't matter for this argument. Keenan Allen has historically always killed the Lions, and he will always be on my list of X factors anytime he squares up against Detroit. On Thanksgiving Day, he had 5 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. And defensively on the Bears side, you always got to look in their secondary. They have a lot of quality talent back there, and they can make plays. And that starts with Jalen Johnson. And he will have primary coverage on the Lions' main wide receiver. You may see him squared up against Amon-Ra, J-Mo. He'll be all over the place, but he has the ability to make plays. If Jared Goff is not careful with the football and efficient, you could see the ball end up in his hands. Also on the Bears side, up front on the defensive line, you always got to be on the lookout for Montez Sweat. Now, he's been a little quiet here this year, and even in that matchup against the Lions on Thanksgiving Day, he didn't make a ton of noise. But I think with the Lions being a little hurt up front, you got Graham Glasgow, who may be out this game. They may have to shift some things around. You could see that Bears front seven make some plays, and I think Montez Sweat may be the guy. And on the other side for the Detroit Lions, they're so depleted, especially up front on that defensive line, but they still have guys like DJ Reader and Zadarius Smith who played huge roles in this game against Chicago on Thanksgiving Day. They are back active and healthy in this matchup here in Week 16, and I could see both of them making a difference. Zadarius Smith alone had 1.5 sacks against the Bears on Thanksgiving Day. He's been a little bit quiet the last few games, but they really need him to step up. And again, I see him being an X factor here in Week 16. The difference in Week 16, Detroit heading to Chicago, I believe is the Lions' offense overwhelming this matchup against the Bears. The Lions are coming in hungry with something to prove. Yes, they are depleted defensively. And yes, now they only have half of the best running back duo in the NFL with no David Montgomery. But the Lions still have fantastic offensive weapons and have all the faith in the world in Jahmyr Gibbs. We know where the Chicago Bears struggle. Offensively, they cannot protect the quarterback. They've had issues running the football. And if they can't protect the football, they really have trouble scoring points. The Lions, on the other hand, average about 32 points per game. And they rarely lose back-to-back games in this Dan Campbell era. So I believe the Lions will come in with a reinvigorated spirit, looking to get back on track and head towards this number 1 seed in the NFC. The line for this game is currently set at Lions -6.5, and the over-under right now set at 47.5 points. With everything we've talked about, the key matchups, the X factors, and what I believe the difference in the game will be, I have the Lions winning this matchup with a score of 31-20. That would bring the Lions record to 13-2 and would drop the Bears to 4-11. That's going to do it for my Week 16 preview. What do you guys think? Who do you have in this matchup? Lions or Bears? What is the final score going to be? Let me know in those comments down below. If you dig the vibe here at Johnny Gas Sports, please hit that like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. I'd also love it if you consider subscribing. We're now on the road to 3,000 thanks to you guys. And if you hit the notify bell, you won't miss any future videos. I do have a membership option available. That's where I do all my live game play-by-plays and a ton of other fun stuff, but there's always free content here for you all the time. More than anything else, make sure to take care of yourself and that mental health. That's more important than anything, and I want to make sure you come back and see me on future videos. Have a fantastic weekend. Happy holidays. Go Lions.